What is up, everybody? Today's topic: Black History Month. Because it's February and here in America, History Month. So I want to facilitate a conversation with the team, with Corona and Justin.
Yo,
What's your hat
what's
say?
going on?
What does your hat say?
Miracle.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's for, I got it from the law firm that I used to work at, Beverly Law. Shout out to them. Worked there for 6 months, but shout out to them. I'll give them a shout out. They've done some good.
What did the hat consist of?
Oh, it just says Miracle, and then just the info for the law office. Yeah, they're a personal injury firm, auto accidents and things of that nature. So looking for it, and I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. But if you're looking for a accident attorney, personal injury attorney, shout out to him. Shout out to Michael Shintop. So.
Yeah. So, how are things going?
Oh, things are good, man. I mean, much like everybody, life's been pretty chaotic. So I'm just, powering through, trusting God, going through the process. I believe that with any rainstorm, sometimes it just happens and you have to go through them. And, but the sun will come out. And when it rains, just make sure that you have an umbrella, you have a raincoat, you have everything that you need, waterproof shoes, good boots or something to make sure that you stay dry out here. So that's basically what, but I'm good. Yo.
She's on the phone. So, Corona gave me a couple options, and one of the options was Black History Month, Black Lives Matter. The other day we were talking about kind of, because I was always for the phrase and the community of Black Lives Matter. That makes sense to me.
Right.
And in a conversation, I'm not necessarily offended by Blue Lives Matter. But I know sometimes that kind of stuff can be divisive. There was some beer commercial that was a brilliant slogan that they had. They had two sides arguing that the beer tastes great, and the other people were saying it was less filling. And both sides were arguing, but it was all about the same beer, and they're just like arguing, and it was a ploy, and it was kind of like people would do that like out in nature. And I believe the cause of the Black Lives Matter was beautiful and very powerful. And the organization of Black Lives Matter I wasn't really co-signing on a lot of things that they were doing. And I don't know, sometimes a lot of these organizations, I don't know if they're ultimately doing the best. So we were talking about that the other day, and I wanted you to kind of add your 2 cents in any way that you can to that.
Yeah, I mean, some of them have been under scrutiny, especially recently, of just, embezzlement or just other situations where they're facing legal trouble, right? And then I think people who are on the right or people who are anti-BLM use that as a way to be like, well, see, their movement isn't legitimate and what have you. But I think
fucking movement, all right.
Yeah, I think the important thing in it all is the message, right? Like, and where the intent is coming from. Basically, what BLM stood for was black people, specifically black men, being targeted by police officers or those who felt like they needed to take the law into their own hands, right? And they were being publicly executed. Like, let's call it for what it is. People were being publicly executed and lynched in real time. So as a result, a movement came, people saying, well, hey, Black Lives Matters too. Like, well, basically Black Lives Matter, right? But like then the whole thing became, well, all lives matter. And here's the thing, we're not saying that all lives don't matter. But it's just so happens to be that Black lives are being targeted and
systemically.
Huh? Say it again?
Systemically, Black lives have been targeted, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think so many times people want to look at the people who are organizing it or people leading things to like basically attack movements, right? But like people need to look deeper into what the message was really about. Obviously it doesn't look good that, you know, certain people from that movement have been called out on certain things, but my 2 cents on it is like, the fact of the matter is police brutality is a thing. The fact of the matter is that people were getting lynched and people are still getting lynched, you know, in real time. And that's not okay. One of the songs I sent in our group chat, I don't know if y'all had time to like really listen to it. It's a song by this rapper named IDK, and it's called No Cable. And basically, it's he basically says like, yo, if I turn the corner, I might get lynched. And this is basically 2019. And he said in 2020 and he starts like going down the years. He's like, this is always going to be a thing. This is never going to leave. And it's just crazy how he kind of predicted it in 2019. So like the fact that this happened before, like the song came out before George Floyd, before, you know, Breonna Taylor, before all the other names that, you know, these people that got lynched pretty much. The fact that it just shows you it's a systematic thing. And for somebody to put in a song like, hey, this is going to continue and this is never going to leave, that's the issue. And I think that's why people who identify as Black or African American have issues because systematically and what I think people don't realize about racism, right? And I just want to just like drive this point is that racism is really an ideology based off of laws to keep certain groups disadvantaged. And like for a long time, like most people know, people of color, especially Black people, were not allowed to vote, not allowed to in certain areas, not allowed to do X, Y, Z. And that's with any ism, right? That's like sexism, that's like heterosexism. These are laws, and based off these laws, this is how the people in power treat you based off these laws. So we need to look at the laws, and things have to change systematically, and that's what it's really about. And so as a young Black male operating in this world, it is frustrating for people to miss the point, and people get so caught up in like who's running it. It's really y'all need to look at the message and the incentive, and look at the fact that racism is systematic. It's based off of laws. We need new laws to be put in place. We need people who are of the agent group, you know, to look at it. The people who are in power need to look at it and be like, wow, this is messed up. But it's hard when you know you're in a place of privilege and you're benefiting from the system. And sometimes because you're in that.
Do you feel that African Americans could get better at telling our story?
Well, yeah, but I mean, and I'm glad you brought that up. As somebody who works in media and has a film degree, I think that over the years we have gotten better at telling our story, but I just think that we keep telling the same stories. And this is just me. Like I'm tired of seeing all these slave movies and hearing all the slave stories. We never, like, there are so many people who identify as Black or African American who invented a lot of great things. Like, I was just reading Thomas Jennings created dry cleaning. The actual water closet, the toilet, was invented by a Black man. Even the whole Hidden Figures movie is about these women who are scientists and who helped these people get to the moon. Like there's so many dope stories out there about how.
Who invented the toilet? What type of person?
African American Black. How do they? Oh my God. Anyways, but my point is, like, there's so many good stories, and there's stories about attorneys. There's stories about doctors. There's stories about how many different people. But then we choose to focus on our trauma, and we choose to trauma bond over this.
I gotta interject real quick because you know how much I've been a fanatic of Kanye in most recent times, and something that he's been saying has been, it's about who controls that narrative, right? In our textbooks, the only thing we ever hear about is Rosa Parks being a client, you know, against policy, going against the grain, and standing up for her basic ass damn rights to sit at the front of the bus, right?
Yeah.
And I mean that all goes back down to early activism, if you ask me.
Right.
And then we hear about Martin Luther King, right? And how he used to protest and give these wonderful speeches, and you know, that's all great. It's all wonderful, and it's great that we still hear their names and we still pass on the story and the history. But at the same time, that's all we ever knew as children, right? And Kanye, as problematic as he can be in media and, you know, in society for some of the off the wall things he says, I think he brings a really good point to it. It's Blackness should be something we celebrate every day, not just in a month. And this is also tied into my own identity as a Chicana woman, right?
Right.
What story are we going to pass down to our children? Are we going to allow schools to teach our children, you know, history? Are we going to allow them to just make us see ourselves as
victims,
potentially being kind of like Rosa Parks and or Martin Luther King down the line, protesting and being socially defiant? Or are we going to empower our children with stories like the ones that you're talking about, where we had Black inventors that we don't even fucking hear about, names we don't even know their names, you know?
Yeah, you don't. I mean, and they give you a handful here and there, like George Washington Carver with the peanut butter and like all this other stuff and tidbits, but like to be real, and I wanted to bring up Kanye in this conversation too, because he's talking about Black Future Month, and that's like a big thing. But I agree we should focus on our future, and not only just Black, but just like people of color, right? Like as Corona was saying. But also too, it's important to remember our history, because obviously without knowing your history, you're not gonna know where you're heading next. I just think that at the end
And
of the
not
day,
only
there's so
that,
many.
but history can serve us as empowerment. Not
Yeah,
just because we learned that people in our past were capable of doing it, but also to ingrain the idea that we can do these things. We can be creators, we can be inventors, we can be amazing scientists.
yeah, exactly. No, to definitely to inspire and uplift and all these things, right? Like I also I shared on my story a movie list of Black films that don't involve trauma, like racial trauma and racial struggle and all these things. And not to bring them up, but like what I felt sucked. And obviously I'm against Bill Cosby, and I'm against like everything that he did. I'm totally, I have to preface that I'm totally against Bill Cosby. But like there's only a handful of Black media that really paints us in that positive light, you know, that like that real like. And even though I love hip hop and I love the culture and I understand it, sometimes the media, and if you don't understand where we're coming from, it doesn't paint us in the best light. And so when I see media that does, it's like, yeah, I want to support that more. I love, like, and also shout out to Issa Rae, right, with the whole Insecure and that being a big thing of like, I just love representation that's like painting us in this light and showing us in our humanity. And tying it back to the Cosby Show, it sucks that a show that was so prominent in pushing in the progressiveness of how we're viewed in this country, there was a layer and an undertone of what he was doing behind the scenes that ultimately kind of almost like discredits the whole situation, you know. And once again, I'm gonna preface this: I'm against Bill Cosby. I'm against everything that he did. But it's just like, I just want more media that, and stories in general, to be displayed that paints us in a better light and really shows us for who we are, and we're not typecasted or stereotyped in these same roles, you know, as a thug, as a drug dealer, as this, as that. And yeah, it's just frustrating. It's frustrating, you know, especially somebody who's Black and educated and but is all of the culture, you know, of hip hop and all these things. Like I start to see these things and I'm just like, man, like we're so much more than that, you know?
Yeah, I hated the Friday movies for a while. Just
Yeah.
and just I had to let go of that to a certain extent, but I really think that of how much it was easier to fund the the Friday movies than the Malcolm X movie.
Oh yeah.
And I I mean, I blame us to a certain extent because we have money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is what it is, and this might be more of a radical approach. And hear me out. I think that that's the reason why people feel like it's easy for these cops to or you know, people who take the law into their own hands and you know, execute us or lynch us, is because some of these people view us as just entertainment. We're expandable. So when you sit up there and do these quote unquote coon things, when you sit and you're just making fun of yourselves and making us look less intelligent and all these things, you set it up to be like, okay, well, what we're doing is not that important. So then when another black person gets killed, it's easy for them to be like, oh, okay, well, because they don't see us anything other than their entertainment or the help or the service. And so I think psychologically, that is something that is down in the subconscious. And then when somebody breaks the mold and somebody who says fuck that, like Colin Kaepernick, oh no, you should learn your place. Oh no, you're an entertainer. You shouldn't do that. You're stepping out, like, and that's, to me, that's like modern day slavery. That's like that modern day slave owner mentality. No, I own you. You can't. How dare you kneel? And then tying it back to the Black Lives Matter thing, that's why he kneeled. It was the message. And so many people get caught up, but they want to blame Colin Kaepernick. It's like, no, it's like he was sending a message. Like, if it wasn't messed up, do you think he would have kneeled? If America was standing on its principles that is in the Constitution, do you think, like, for real, do you think he would have kneeled? Probably not. But America doesn't. And the fact of the matter is, people who look like you and I built this country. For real. Like, our ancestors built this country. So, tying it all back, I really do think at the end of the day, how we control the narrative, how we hold each other accountable on how we're presented in media, is important. And moving forward, how we send the message, or how we go with it.
When you say the phrase that we built this country, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Like our labor, the things that we've contributed. We contributed. The inventions that we've made. The just a lot. The culture of things, even in modern times, in modern music. Like I'll use this because I know this for a fact. It's like a lot of American music is stemmed from Black musicians. So it's a lot, the slang that you hear on the news is from Black people or brown people. Like, so to my point, it's like we have been so influential in so many different ways, whether it's physical labor, whether it's inventions, whether it's culture, whether it's a lot of different things. So I do feel like we have a right to be like, hey, like, yo, America, we got it popping out here. We for sure got it popping out here.
So, how do you feel about the reparations that Biden's giving you, the Black people, for income equality, the crack pipes? How do you feel about that? Reparations.
Honestly, I'm not the biggest Biden fan. And I'll be radical and say that I'm not the biggest Biden fan. I haven't been rocking with Biden since the whole Haitian thing
But
at
it's
the
not
border.
about whether you rock with him or not. The question is, how do you feel about those reparations that are being presented, right?
I mean,
because I can come here and say I don't like Biden either, but there's some things that I'm okay with.
nah,
Other things that I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why is he doing that? Now, I saw.
nah,
Let me finish. Let me finish.
Let's go, Brandon.
I saw that post and I reposted it yesterday, and I did have a conversation with one of my friends who says, "Look, I don't like Biden either, but this is a blind spot that I wasn't aware of, is people who use drugs obviously have some type of mental health problem, right?
right,
And a lot of times they end up using needles that have already been used, or they share needles that have already been used, or they share crack pipes that have been used, and they end up even more sick.
right.
Now, personally, am I okay with the way that it's being handled? No, right? Because I personally believe that we should be investing money in different types of programs that would help with mental health, or creating programs that would help rehabilitate people, right? But the reality is, I don't think Biden is interested in creating solutions.
Nah. Again, reparations.
He's here to patch the road. He's not here to dismantle the road and repave it. That's what he's doing.
I mean, you pretty much said what I was gonna say. It's cool. It's cool. I mean, I just think that at the end of the day, it's about laws, and laws, certain things have to change in terms of that. And I agree with Kanye in the sense that we need to take more control of our narrative, and we have to be more willing to be like, nah, I'm with that, or nah, fuck that. Like that's what it has to come down to. And that's just for me. That's how I'm feeling.
Steve,
what was that?
What are your thoughts on that?
I think based on that, he's out of touch, and the income equality, selling it as that is the part that's offensive to me, because
and I just don't. There's something about him that just rubs me the wrong way. And even when he was like coming out before he was the president, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. And it's like, again, I don't like Trump. Like I've publicly been like, fuck Trump and all this other stuff. But it's just.
But you know that he does that in order so people feel invalidated. They feel out of touch with who they are, and then they're probably going to vote for him, because if you're black and you identify as black and someone says that to you who has power, guess what? And you don't have the education, you're going to go vote for him because you want to be validated for your blackness.
Yeah.
That happens because a lot of the problem, I think, is, and I'm a big voucher for education and higher education, is people aren't educated, and that's something that's done on purpose, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But again, it's about the system.
Yeah.
There's a reason why there are people who are uninformed and uneducated, and there's a reason why the projects exist, and there's a reason why they call it the trap, and there's a reason why that in local hoods that there isn't quality food and healthier options. It's make no mistake that this is all coincidental of why things are the way that they are, and people are dying over fighting for blocks that they don't own because they want to have a sense of ownership in a country that a lot of our people, well, most of our people were stolen. So I just think at the end of the day, how do we fix it? More people who identify as black or African American, and I even say people of color in general, right, need to work on getting in these positions of power to help change things. That's what's going to happen. Because for you to control the narrative, we need more people of color in politics. We need more people of color in Congress. We need more people in the people of color in the government, local government. We need more people of color in these rooms in terms of entertainment. That's how things are going to change. If you're depending on these people who've been in power for generations, to just be like, oh yeah, sounds like a good idea. You're sadly mistaken. Generations. And that's the real reparation. How about you get up your behind instead of complaining and go get those jobs, become educated, do what you got to do to go change things. But
how about we don't get those jobs and instead we create the jobs for other people?
But I see what you're saying, but it's a little bit of both.
But
It's a little
jobs
bit of
that
both.
can sustain, jobs that can sustain humanity.
Real quick. Real quick. What both of you are saying is, and I've said this for a long time in a while. It's like, why are we trying to get somebody and putting all our energy towards getting somebody in an ivory tower that doesn't give a fuck about us most of the time to change when we could change?
Right.
Exactly. That's my point. That's my point. And I was gonna say as a joke, shout out to my guy Sahai the Prince. You know, let's start a new country, New Africa. He has a song called New Africa. He's like basically like, since America don't want to see us, let's just go somewhere. Let's go back to Africa. But I mean,
that's a dumb joke.
Oh, Mickey, you're dumb. How about that? You're a dumb rat. Yeah.
I think honestly,
he's a hood rat.
It would be really difficult and almost nearly unattainable, unfortunately. And I hear you out, Justin, and I probably thought the same way. But in theory, I think this country was set up to be a good place. And I cringe when I say that still, because it's like, it didn't happen that way, right?
No.
But I think in theory, they set up a system that was going to work well. In practice, that didn't happen, right?
Well, hey, you missed my whole my Colin Kaepernick spiel. That I was basically saying, like, if they followed the Constitution what it was supposed to be, I said, do you think Colin Kaepernick would have like sat up there and been like, not, you know, kneeled and everything? So I don't think so. I think here's the issue. Everyone wants to talk about equality and all this stuff, which dope, right? But I think it's about equity in the sense of like everybody getting the needs and the resources that they need to thrive and be the best person they can be in this country. So I just wish
I'm a believer in universal truths, and this is something that I used to talk about a lot while I was in college, because I used to have a lot of conversations with people. But for starters, there's enough fucking food in the world to feed everyone. No one should be going hungry, right? Why don't we start there?
Yeah, for sure.
I get it. But here's the thing.
Don't hit me with your butt.
No, well, I'm gonna hit you with my butt. Fuck it. But when things are happening in real time with so many different issues, I can see why certain people would prioritize other things. That was my point.
I don't like your butt.
I'm pretty sure you don't like my butt, but anyways. Generations. For sure. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just think that this stuff is systematic, and if you want to see change, you need to be part of the change and try to level up to do that.
I'm gonna make a change for once in my life.
Don't sing that song. She doesn't like Michael Jackson.
And well, I don't mind Michael Jackson. I'm not a fan of Michael.
Mama say, mama
I wouldn't even have known that that's one of his songs if you wouldn't have said that.
No, oh well.
But no, for real, like, while I was at state, one of the biggest things that I always talked about was access to food. Because to me, like, you know, there's basic human needs: food, water, housing, right? But for me, I think I struggled, right? So I didn't just struggle. It was a collective for me of different things. But food became one of the things that I think made me most emotional when I was struggling. Mainly because there was so much food that would go in the trash. And I'm not even lying about this, but at campus, a lot of the restaurants would throw away food. And they would lock the bins. So people couldn't go and get some of those leftovers, or even food that was still kind of good, even though it's like expired, you know? And I had fucking trouble understanding that shit. You mean you're gonna fucking throw this fucking food away instead of giving it to people who are hungry? But of course, it comes down to the legal matter. They didn't want to get a lawsuit for possible food poison. And I met with so many students in student government to talk about it and to potentially come up with a system. We wanted to be able to, at the end of the day, of the workday, send out in mass texts, hey, to all students, hey, if you're hungry, come to East Commons or West Commons, and there's going to be a bunch of food that before we toss it, you can come and grab what you need. Of course, that never happened, but that was what we were planning to do. Mommy, yes. I don't want to sleep.
A lot of that has to do with control.
Okay. Go sit over there, please.
I think the Hunger Games is a perfect example of us playing certain games in order to get food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
the big action that we held, or one of the biggest actions we held, was, ironically, we called it the real Hunger Games, because we had students, like, I didn't know, when I was struggling, I didn't know that I wasn't the only one. I truly believed that I was the only student in higher education that was struggling to have food, right? And when I finally started breaking out of that like shame, was when I started making connections with other students, and I started making connections with my professors and even people who work in staff, and realizing, yo, I'm not the only one. There is other students out there who are going hungry, fucking eating cup of noodles and trying to survive and thrive and go to school, and feeding their brains garbage. You can look me up, Jeanette Corona, cup of noodles, SDSU, you'll find it. We delivered a bunch of cup of noodles to the university president, and there was a news press, and we talked about how that's not fucking food, right?
No, there isn't.
It's a staple for people who want to get by, but is it a real meal? Is it really going to nourish your body and your brain so that you can excel? Meanwhile, fresh food.
How does this tie into the topic?
Access to food.
She's saying we need to focus on other more pressing things like basic necessities. But again, my point was that I think when there's so many different pressing issues going on, and I've just seen it, just being a general manager, right? When you have so many different things going on in your organization, you sometimes are like, okay, what's a priority and what isn't at this moment? And it's not to say that you don't think that the issue is important, but I can see why things get pushed to the back.
I think that
right,
because Black folks are going hungry, brown folks are going hungry. In the jail system, what are they being fed? I mean, we just went to this weekend. We ended up going to the Tupac exhibit, right? And I was fucking mind blown to find out that while his mother was pregnant with him in the womb, She had to fucking put in a request for dietary needs, and she would eat 1 hard-boiled egg and 1 cup of fucking milk. She had to request this shit while she's in jail just to get proper nourishment for her son. That's how it ties in.
Yeah, and she was a
more
Black
black
Panther.
bodies and brown bodies in jail, losing their rights to even fucking vote.
Yeah, I agree.
For fucking dumb shit. I mean, how many people are still in jail for fucking smoking marijuana?
That's something that they need to fix now that weed is legal. They need to fix something. I agree. But I'm just saying, again, all these are important. All these are super important, mad important. I'm just saying in general, I can see how things can get swept under the rug. That was my whole thing. I don't know, man. I just think at the end of the day, tying it with the jail thing, and it's a system of laws. Racism is a system of laws, and basically based off of this system, people treat people a certain way. And that's the issue. And yeah, they need to figure out the jail system. Like why are there more jails being built than schools? Why more resources going there?
So from slavery and what the African American experience here in America, there's been intergenerational trauma.
Right.
And that may get in the way of us working together as well, and causing mental illness and some of the other things to go at. And I think there's lots of pride that gets in the way of people noticing and being aware of that, so we can work together better. And again, instead of trying to get handouts from other people, but giving each other a hand up.
Right. No, it's true, man. I think that there's been so much trauma and so many different issues, and I still think slavery is alive. It just looks different. Like I said, Black people being publicly executed. That's modern day lynching. It's just different, and this has always been going on. But now that we have social media and phones, we can see it in real time. But the beauty is that because we have social media, we can be activists, and we can change things, and we can help try to change the narrative, right? Or get control of it. And I still stand behind, if you want to change things, you got to be part of the change. Like revolution starts with you. And again, I can't fully disclose like what I'm up to, but I just know that trying to work with kids in the system, teaching them art and craft. What?
Mickey said he knows. But he's.
Oh my God. But I just know that working with incarcerated youth, which I'm looking forward to starting soon, can help change things. Like again, revolution starts with you. So I've been on the path of becoming more educated, understanding the system, and the best way I can. So I'm living what I'm preaching as much as I can.
Good job.
Yeah. Trying out here in these streets, man.
So we all good?
One last thing. I just think representation matters, man. That's it. Representation matters, and we need more positive representation. Period.
What the fuck does that mean?
I need more people in power that look like me, so they can inspire me to be great. That's what I mean, fucking Mickey.
Who wants a movement of ugly people?
Oh my God, Mickey is gonna get a one-way trip back to Disneyland threw
Wait,
my foot up his ass. I'm gonna kick him all the way back to Disneyland.
All talk, no action.
You can catch these hands. Okay, freaking 4-fingered. That's fine.
Cool. Good job. Fight the power.
peace.
That's the power. Peace.